Sir, let's start the class. Sir, sir, you are muted. So let's start the class.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Bad morning, sir. Are you
Good
sure?
morning, sir.
Good morning. So you are the minority. That bad morning. Uh,
Morning, sir.
so majority will form that. Okay.
Good morning, sir.
घर में कुछ काम करते हो कि नहीं?
क्या काम
Good
करेगा?
morning, sir.
कुछ काम नहीं है. बाजार कौन करता है? मार्केट. Do you go to market sometime?
No,
Yes,
sir.
sir. So
No,
sometimes. Yes,
भाई
sir.
सर एक बूढ़े बाप को कितने दिन आप भेजोगे मार्केट? कभी कभी आप भी जाओ, थोड़ा सब्जी वब्जी खरीद के लाओ।
सर क्लास से छुटकारा नहीं मिलता।
क्लास से छुटकारा नहीं मिलता। क्लास तो शुरू होता है 9 बजे से बेटा, उसके पहले क्या करते हो?
सर सर सुबह 7 बजे योगा भी है।
सर सुबह 7 बजे से क्लास हुआ आज।
और
वो
वो
तो
सुनना नहीं
हफ्ते
है
में
अभी।
एक दिन है भाई, हफ्ते में एक दिन
सुबह
होता है।
सुबह 7 बजे का क्लास क्या डेली होता है? सैटरडे संडे भी होता है?
नहीं,
नहीं ना।
एक दिन एक दिन।
और why
नहीं,
can't you
sir.
remember that old proverb that early to bed and early to rise? उसके बाद आगे।
सर अभी ठंड है सर।
अभी ठंडा है। ओके। So nobody has that experience of going to market and buying some vegetables.
Yes, sir. I
Yes
have.
sir, yes sir, you
I
have
have
that.
that. I go to
Yes sir,
buy
yes
मेरे
sir.
साथ
vegetables,
होता है
and
usually।
but not meat.
And sir, very good experience of bargaining also.
Yes,
Bargaining.
sir.
And what about that?
बहुत लड़ाई करना पड़ता है पैसों
No,
के लिए।
sometimes you have that old newspapers at your house and you sell those things to some persons, those who come to your house, the paper DJ, paper DJ. So how you weigh those old papers?
Sir, after
गाड़ी
JE,
वाला
sir, after JE, I sold 80 kg of ready material.
Sir, 7 to 8 rupees per kg, sir. This is rate, sir. Yes,
Now,
in Bihar.
how you measure the weight of old papers?
सर वो बस्ता के हिसाब से लेता है, फुल
सर
करने से
सर
कुछ
गाड़ी
देता है।
पाला साहाଯ୍य ओजन कोड़ी।
दाढ़ी पर
हमारे यहाँ तो पाँच
what
पाँच
is that
केजी
दाढ़ी
भाई,
पर?
जी के साथ अब सेल कर दिया।
जो मेरा वाला जो लेता है
Sir,
वो
do you have your own dani palla at your house or you depend on that dani palla brought by that particular
तो गाड़ी
person?
वाला ब्रॉड बाय दैट वेंडर।
पर्सन हु बॉट द तारी पल्ला सर।
Do you depend or believe those persons dani palla
डिपेंड
that
सर।
scale? Hmm?
यहाँ
It
सर
has
हमारे
to
पड़ते
kind
हैं
of.
ऐसे।
But they held in improper way so that the weight is less. They held in
Good.
that way.
So you have that experience. और
यस
बहुत
सर।
सारे चीजों करते हैं। Anyway, that is their business. I don't need to interfere and poke my nose there. Now, you just tell me, do you know how many people are there? 147, including me. Okay,
124.
124, sir.
124, sir.
124 is showing 149.
Yes sir, it is 149.
149.
And sir.
Now, please check your screen. Is there
Yes,
anything?
sir. Yes, sir.
So, I just show you one photograph.
Okay, sir.
Now, what do you find here?
टाटा
गाड़ी वाला.
Weighing balance.
Some
खुला जंत्र।
non-digital weighing.
Analog.
Now, what normally we do, we put the
Say weight.
weight here,
Sides, sir.
some iron blocks with something marked on their surface,
ISD. Sir.
and on this side we put some material. It may be potato, it may be other vegetable or anything, what it may be, and
Sir.
this bar should be horizontal. Okay.
Yes.
यस
Now,
सर।
now you come to the for mechanics part. Suppose you place one 5 kilogram block here,
Yes.
and
यस
you
सर।
place exactly that 5 kilogram potato so that the bar is horizontal. This one.
Yes, sir.
हॉर्जन।
Now
यस
it
सर।
is connected to this vertical support in terms of some hook or something like that. Now, what about the total force acting at that hook in the form of the reaction? Now, one
Sir,
thing.
total of.
90,
One
19
thing.
Newton.
That 10 kg mass
Yes, sir.
plus weight due to this frame plus weight due to this scale pen, and weight due to this connecting metal strings or something like that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, if for our calculation sake, if we consider this holding frame, this connecting or this tie strings and this scale pens, those are weightless. Simply that 5 kg block here,
I
and here,
I
and
there.
5 kg potato is there. So that 10 kg mass equivalent to some force, it is acting, and that is supported by a hook here at this location. So if it is 10 kilogram corresponding to that maybe 9.81 Newton, total weight is acting half of that through these pen centers, then what is the total force acting in the form of reaction? It is double of that.
Same.
So corresponding to 5 kilogram, that is how much? Maybe equivalent to 5 Newton, something like that. 5 Newton, it is 10 Newton. That is one part. The overall equilibrium of this weighing system, the horizontal bar, the scale pens, the tie strings, etc. Now, what about the individual scale pen? Suppose this is one connection, it is providing a support for this portion. Some 5 kg block is placed here. So naturally, the hook here, which is holding these ropes or metal strings, it is providing the reaction upward, and downward is the applied force. So what about the applied force? Maybe it is 50 newtons, something like that. 5 kg mass multiplied by approximately 10 meter per second square. So approximately that 50 newton force is acting here, and it is transferred through these three supporting strings at this location where these strings are tied. So that 50 Newton force acting through the center, it is transmitted through this string, through this string, through this string equally,
Yes.
identically. And it is transferred here in the form of a concentrated reaction vertical upward. That magnitude will be exactly same of this 50 Newton force. Its direction will be exactly opposite to that and along that same line of action. This vertical line passing to the center of this scale
স্যার
pencil. Yes,
স্যার বলছি একটা কোয়েশ্চেন ছিল
regarding what?
স্যার এটা সম্বন্ধে যদি আমি মানে
No,
একদিকে
just to hold a minute, because uh, most of us are from this state, but still other 50% students, they are from different states. Maybe Karnataka, maybe Kerala, maybe Uttar Pradesh,
Andhra Pradesh.
Andhra Pradesh.
Yes,
So
sir.
many
Only
states.
English.
So normally,
Rajasthan.
what
Bihar.
whatever you have anything to ask, please ask in English, so that uh, other people also can get benefited from your question and corresponding discussion from my side and your batchmate side. Okay, so if it is possible, you do it in that way. I hope it is possible, because your medium in school, it was English.
না
Beta,
Yes,
বাংলা
sir.
মিডিয়াম থেকে
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Bangla medium, but was not there any second language?
হ্যাঁ স্যার বাট
What was that?
হিন্দিটা বলতে পারি স্যার
Can speak in Hindi, sir.
What? No, I am talking about what is your second language in your school.
ইংলিশ স্যার
It was
English.
English. So,
English. Yes,
and
English.
it was English for 2 years. So it is expected that, uh, as
We
you
can
told,
speak in English.
as you told, you can speak a little bit in Hindi. Anyway, through television programs or Hindi movies, etc. Normally, we make ourselves conversant for that, and most of us, because it is very close to the northern region. Just to hold a minute, better.
Bangalore.
দিয়ে দাও। হ্যাঁ, ওখানে কি করে যাবো? দাঁড়া, আস্তে আস্তে করো, অত হুড়োহুড়ি করলে আমি খেতে পারবো না।
Okay, I'm back. So going to that part, that overall reaction for the equilibrium of this full system at this particular point. Now, can you hear me and see this page?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
if it is
Yes, sir.
50 Newton, 50 Newton, then 100 Newton reaction will be here. We consider this part there. 50 Newton force is acting through the center of the scale pen downward, and the concentrated reaction at this node acting upward along that same line, along that same vertical line but upward, that concentrated reaction is 50 Newton again. Now, if we consider the free body diagram of this pen itself, then what happens? How many forces are there?
So
One
two force.
applied force,
So
50
50
Newton,
Newton
acting
downwards,
vertical
50 Newton
downward to
upwards.
the center of the scale pen, and through these three strings, these connecting strings, there are three tensile
There are three
forces,
tensions.
three tensions. Now, what about their magnitudes to determine that?
We
Now,
need
what is your common idea about this thing? That again, sigma fx0, sigma fy0, sigma z0, naturally. And then,
so then we'll equate it like in the vertical direction will be all
Vertical
three
direction should be
vertical
zero,
will
sir.
be equal to
The
the
reaction
downward.
and the action.
in vertical direction, there will be a contribution from the self weight or the
Self
weight
weight.
applied here, 50 Newton downward. In
Yes, sir.
horizontal direction, there is no contribution from this weight, 50 Newton. Only thing, these three tensions, suppose T1, T2, T3, and their horizontal components, that T1x plus T2x plus T3x, that summation is equal to 0.
Hmm.
So for that part, it's okay. Now,
Sir, due to symmetry, we can assume all the tensions are T.
exactly, that assumption makes three unknowns to one unknown. So all T1, T2, T3, those are same due to placement of these connections 120-degree apart along this periphery of this scale pen. Okay, so that symmetry we are using, and in that case, the vertical contribution from T1, vertical contribution from this T2 is equal to T1, and vertical contribution from this T3 is equal to T1. Those will be T1 multiplied by sine of this angle made by this tie rod like thing or the connecting string with this radial line of the scale pen or with the horizontal. So if this angle with the horizontal is theta, then T1 sine theta plus T2 is equal to T1 that sine theta and T3 is equal to T1 that sine theta. Summation of these three vertical components will be equal to 50 Newton or that W, the weight of whatever you placed here. Of course, neglecting the weight of the scale pen and these connecting strings. Okay. Now, how to find out the angle made by this direction of these forces or the reaction forces or tension developed in this connecting string with the horizontal?
We have to measure it.
You
So
have
we
to
have
measure it.
measured the
So,
radius and length of strings.
But
so
if the
either you,
radius is given, then we can find it.
if radius is given, is it the only requirement? The
No,
radius is
sir.
given and that
No,
angle.
sir.
No,
Length
the
of
height,
string. Sorry.
height of
Height or
the
The
length.
height
string,
of
height
string.
or the length of the string,
So either the height. So if
or
height is
okay.
given, this height divided by radius will be tan theta when
Yes,
theta is
sir.
the angle made by this rod with this horizontal,
Yes.
or it is easier to give you the length of these
Length height,
strings.
length height.
The height you need to measure separately, but this measurement will be easier. That is length of this string, and in that case, the cosine theta is this radius, that is the base of this triangle, divided by this length of the string, that is the
Hypotenuse.
hypotenuse of this triangle.
Yes.
Okay, for this right angle triangle. So you get that theta and sine theta and find the component of individual tensions T1, T2, T3 in these strings in vertical direction. So T1 sine theta plus T2 is equal to T1 that sine theta plus T3 is equal to T1 that sine theta. So 3 T1 sine theta that is equal to the weight applied here W. Fine. So we find that T1 and that T1 is equal to T2 and that equal to T3. All the three things, three connecting strings, they are carrying the same reaction force in the form of tension developed in the strings. Paka? Now we, uh, sorry, uh, I should have shown this free body diagram separately. Is it okay? So corresponding to this weight passing through the center and these are the tension developed in the string uniformly placed along this periphery. 120 degree central angle, 120 degree central angle and 120 degree central angle by these positions of these bottom connections. And the vertical reaction developed at this hook will be vertical upward of same magnitude, which is the vertical downward self weight, or neglecting the self weight of the pen, only the weight applied here on the pen, of course, placed central, symmetrically. Done? Now, what is the other way to find out the angle, the components, etc.? Anyway, before going to that part of calculating in some other way, you just think about the central angles are not 120 degree. Suppose the central angle formed between the connection of 1 and 2, this is suppose 90 degree.
So
And
what is the central angle? You cannot understand it.
this is one circular arc from this base point to this base point, this connection point to this connection point, and this circular arc is forming some angle at the center.
Yes, sir.
So that angle I am talking about. So that 360 degree is subdivided for this particular case in three equal parts: 120 degree,
Yes, sir.
120 degree, and
And
this 120 degree. But suppose you shift this location little bit closer to this connection. Suppose you reduce that angle formed by this arc at the center, that angle you make 90 degree. So what about the remaining angle formed by the remaining portion of the perimeter?
270 degrees.
270 degree. And uh, equally, symmetrically, you place the third tie here. So what will be the angle formed by these two half circular arcs for the remaining
270.
part?
135.
135, 135.
Yes,
Now
sir.
Yes, sir.
again,
Sir,
yes.
Why we consider, sir, that the tension in the both the strings are same?
Why we consider? That's a very right question. When you are considering all these three strings are identically placed, suppose you are forming one equilateral triangle at 120, 120, 120. So all these strings will form same angle with horizontal, same angle with vertical. And if you consider the free body diagram of this junction, this not there. There, one central force, concentrated reaction force of 50 Newton is acting, and three reaction in the form of tension are here. Whatever you are considering at this location, the same thing you can consider here also. And these three strings are identically placed above the central axis. So that symmetry gives us that idea that everything will hold that same magnitude of tension developed there. Otherwise, if it is something different, then the combination of these three will be in such a way that they are not giving any vertical line passing through this, the resultant of these three combination T1, T2, T3. And it creates the second level of difficulty of calculating, considering so many things. Okay. Now, regarding the other things, it will be clear if we consider this thing. This is the pen, but it is not that circular. It is not in the form of 120, 120, 120. Those are all differently inclined to this vertical line, and their force contribution to this vertical axis will be different. For horizontal equilibrium, T1x, T2x, T3x, that is equal to 0. But T1, T2, T3, those are of different value and their angles are also of different value with the horizontal. So T1 cos theta 1 plus T2 cos theta 2 plus T3 cos theta 3, those are different, but their summation is equal to 0. That's fine. So they all have different values. So according to you, we are talking about all these different values, no same value. Now, what about the angle? When the dimensions are given in this form, it's a square of 2.4 meter by 2.4 meter. There is a hook which is directly vertically located above this center line of this, above the center of this square plate, and this is located at a height 2.4 meter. And at three locations A, B, and C, three knots are there to tie three strings, and these three strings other ends are connected at this particular location D, which is directly 2.4 meter above the center of the square plate. Now how to find out the angle formed by these lines, line 1, this
So
line 2, and this line 3?
first we meet
Sir,
A2
so the diagonal निकाल देते हैं
and then
240 root
that is
diagonal by 2.4
Uh,
root 2 meters diagonal हो जाएगी उसकी आधी
so diagonal will calculate.
So length of AG is 1.2 root 2.
yes sir
So 2.4 divided by 1.2 root 2, that is tan theta 1, when theta 1 is the angle made by this line with the plate.
root 2
Next, what about this? That is also same, 2.4 divided by 1.2 root 2. What about this third one? Again it is 2.4 divided by 1.2.
1.2 yes sir
Now that is for tan theta 1, tan theta 2 and tan theta 3. What about sine theta 1, sine theta 2 and sine theta 3? We need these lengths. Either you find the angles from inverse tan theta 1, inverse tan theta 2, inverse tan theta 3 to find out theta 1, theta 2, theta 3 and calculate sine theta 1, sine theta 2, sine theta 3. That is the way. Other way is if we can find the lengths of these individual strings.
Through
What
pi.
about this length? It will be 1.2 root 2, that is square,
yes sir
plus 2.4 square whole thing under root, that is this length. It will be the length of this also. And but what about this length? It is 1.2 square plus 2.4 whole square, 2.4 square, whole thing under root. So for this simple geometry, we can do this thing. And afterwards, when mathematicians gave us some better mechanism to do all these calculations, that is in the form of vector, then what we did? We simply found with reference to some origin. Suppose G is the origin for this Cartesian coordinate system. Along this direction, suppose it is X. Along this direction connecting GC, it is Y. And vertical upward, it is Z. So corresponding to these three X, Y, Z directions, so what about the coordinates of A, B and C? A will be minus 1.2 for X, minus 1.2 for Y, and 0 for Z. Then what about B?
One point two minus 1.2 0.
And then 0.
Then
For
Z.
C? For C?
0, 1.20.
Yes.
What about D?
0,
2.4.
comma 2.4.
0, 0,
0, 0, 2.4.
002.4, yes, sir.
Suppose the square steel
Okay.
plate which is kept horizontal, mass is 1800 kg. To find the tensions in each cable. Okay. Then uh, through the center of gravity, the total weight is acting, and the overall support reaction it is
ট্রেন
at D.
টিকিট কেটে
So
চলে যাও ওয়েটিং
for
লিস্টে
the
থাকলে বসতে
equilibrium
পারবে পারবে না হলে না
of this, we can simplify to a
Sir,
situation. Yes.
sir, will the plate keep horizontal?
It has been kept.
Because CD,
No, no, no. You do one thing. You place the plate on a horizontal floor.
yes.
Then at a particular location 2.4 meter directly above this point G, the center of this plate, you fix one location D, and you cut the length of the string in such a way that these things are just tight. So you take different length, 1.2 root 2 square plus 2.4 square whole thing under root, you calculate that and cut a length of string for this. Same
Oh,
length you need to cut from this, and some different length. This is 1.2 square plus 2.4 square whole thing under root. You take a length of that value for this
then,
third value,
sir,
then you make it not there. Okay.
okay. G will be not in the center then.
अरे बेटा सेंटर में वो तो है जी.
तो सर तीनों को
सीडी की
अगर
लेंथ कम है
रखेंगे
ना, फिर उस हिसाब से
सीडी की लेंथ कम है ना सर
हाँ,
टेंशन
सीडी
भी
की
तो
लेंथ,
ज्यादा
सीडी का लेंथ कम है.
हाँ,
टेंशन भी तो ज्यादा है लेकिन
हाँ वही.
उसी वो पहले से वो हमने हॉरिजॉन्टल रखा है तो उस हिसाब से काटा है तो हॉरिजॉन्टल ही रहेगा वो.
And you need to consider all these strings are inextensible. ऐसा नहीं है कि रबर बैंड है वो किसी की तरफ हिल जाए and it becomes longer. It's not like that. These strings are flexible but inextensible. Now, what about the weight passing through the center? Because that weight and the reaction at D, they will balance each other. Whatever may be the magnitude and the direction of these connecting strings. Individual tension values will be different. Individual angles will be different. Somehow these two strings are in symmetry. They may not be. B may be not at the corner. It could be shifted to some other location here. Now, as you know about this free body diagram, it is something like this. Through this center of gravity of this plate of mass 1.8 multiplied by 1000 kg multiplied by 9.81 divided with 1000, it will be in the form of kilonewton. So total weight acting here is 17.6 kilonewton. And we name these tensions in the member AD, BD and CD as TA, TB and TC. Clear? These are the lengths 1.2 root 2. This is also 1.2 root 2. This is 1.2. You calculate the length of the strings 1.2 root 2 square plus 2.4 square whole thing under root. Then this one will also be same, and here also. Now this is the thing what we are talking about. Coordinate of A minus 1.2 minus 1.20, B 1.2 minus 1.20, C 0 1.20, and D 002.4. Now if we consider the lines connecting A and D, B and D, C and D, and represent them in the form of a vector, then what about the vector AD? 0 minus minus 1.2 I plus 0 minus minus 1.2 J plus 4 minus
Yes,
0
sir.
K.
2.4 minus 0.
Yes, sir.
Then what about BD? 0 minus 1.2 I, 0 minus minus 1.2 J, and 2.4 minus 0 K, and similarly for CD also. Now once we have those XYZ components for that, for those vector in the form of component of I, component of J, component of K, etc., or coefficients corresponding to I, J and K, what about those values? Those are the vector components along X, Y and Z direction. And how to find out the direction cosines?
Unit vector, sir. By finding unit vector.
By simply finding the length and dividing with those component vectors with that length. Okay, and once we find the unit vectors, then magnitude of the tension in AD, BD and CD with that unit vector will be the tension vector corresponding to these three strings. Now we can resolve in three components for every force: TAX, TAY, TAZ, TBX, TBY, TBZ, TCX, TCY, TCZ, and the vector summation is 0. It gives the component summation will also be 0. So TAX plus TBX plus TCX, that is equal to 0. Then TAY plus TBY plus TCY, that is equal to 0. And what about that Z? TAZ plus TBZ plus TCZ, is it equal to 0?
Yes. No, sir. Is equal to 1.9.
17.66
Exactly.
kilonewton.
Exactly. We need to consider the Z direction force, this one, minus 17.66 kilonewton.
Yes, sir.
So these are the three vectors,
Yes, sir. Three unknowns, three equations.
three unknowns, three equations. What about the magnitudes of this lengths or magnitude of these vectors A, D, B, D, C, D? Is simply like this.
Yes, sir. Modern.
Then correspondingly you can find out the unit vector, or in that simple expression you can find this, the tens. Now one thing, as I have that facility to make these scripts bold or not bold, in most of the books you will find the bold letters to represent the vectors. But when you write on your answer script, you do not avail that facility. So how you represented that vector or its magnitude in schools? How to differentiate?
With the arrow on the head.
Either a
Arrow and
horizontal towards right arrow on top of this,
না
or
এটা নিয়ে
in
যাও
some book you will find some bottom line, rather the underscore like thing. So TA, there is a horizontal line under that. So that also in some books you will find. And normally in most of the book they avoid those things and make simply this in its bold face.
রিপেয়ার হয়ে গেল
So it is the magnitude multiplied by corresponding direction cosines. This is x component 1.2 divided by 1.2 root 6, 1.2 y component divided by 1.2 root 6, and z component is 2.4 divided by 1.2 root 6. So when the situation is given in this form, or when it is even given in this way, then naturally it is better to have these coordinates in that form. So if height is given, then it's better to directly get the z component or z coordinate. Otherwise, if in normal way radius of the pan is given and length of the string is given, in that case find out the height of this location, the support from the center in the form of the length of the string square minus radius of the pan square, whole thing under root, the reverse process. क्या बेटे चुप क्यों हो गए? Hypotenuse square minus base square, that is equal to perpendicular square.
Yes, sir. Pythagoras theorem.
sir.
हाँ, तो पाइथागोरस कौन था? year of birth कब था और क्या क्या किया था पाइथागोरस ने?
पाइथागोरस सर एक वर्कर था
पाइथागोरियन ट्रिपलेट
एग्जैक्टली पाइथागोरियन ट्रिपलेट, वो तो बाद में हमें पता चला. लेकिन सपोज I give you a very long rope, you can measure a good distance. Now can you form a right angle triangle with that rope? I'm wasting a little time. How to draw one right angle triangle with a flexible rope given to you?
वे कंटिन्यू मतलब हमें सेक्शन काटने होंगे 2n+2 2n and 2n-2 के.
तो राइट एंगल ट्रायंगल बन जाएगा.
सर हमें उन्हें मतलब 2n+2 -2n तो 6n से हमें मतलब n निकल जाएगा, उससे n से पुट करके हमें 2n+2 and 2n-2
तो
से
देखिए
सर्कल बना देंगे, डायमीटर से बना देंगे.
ठीक है, और कोई इजी मेथड आपको दिमाग में नहीं है?
सर ओनली थ्रेड है क्या?
दोनों को जोड़ दो सर, दोनों पॉइंट को जोड़
as the rope is very long,
Yes,
so
sir.
what we can do,
connect the ends.
we measure simply with your hand, you just measure 3 unit, 4 unit and 5 unit and you form a triangle.
Oh, okay.
Beta, you are going to be engineers, and
Yes, sir.
engineers are, that word engineer has come from genius. You people are genius, beta.
Yes.
Don't underestimate your merit.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, most welcome. Now, this
But how
is
we will find sir exact length sir by hand?
बेटा कोई सिविल इंजीनियर बनने वाला है इधर?
क्षितिज.
So there are
Who,
at
sir?
least 10-15 civil would be civil engineers are here. और जब हम मैदान में जाते हैं ना मेजर करने के लिए लैंड, so बहुत सारी चीज हमारे पास नहीं होता है, तो कम चला लेते हैं. So this is very crude method, 3, 4, 5, and there may be so many combinations. Now how to get those combinations?
multiply them with a ratio.
Suppose hypotenuse square is base square plus
Perpendicular
altitude
square.
square. So suppose base is B and altitude is A and hypotenuse is C. So in that case, A square plus B square is equal to C square. Now if we form C square minus B square is equal to A square, then what happens? Can we form C square minus B square in the form of C plus B and C minus B?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And if we consider C minus B is equal to 1, then what happens?
C plus B equal to A.
C plus B is equal to A square. Now how to make the combination C plus B is equal to A square? We take any number A. Suppose A is 7. So make it A square. How much is coming? 7 square is equal to 49. Then it's a, if this is one odd number. So it has got two successive components. One is 24, other is 25. Two consecutive numbers. So in that case, 24 plus 25 within a bracket multiplied by 1, that is equal to 7 square, and that 1 you replace by 24 minus 25. So 24 square minus 25 square, that is equal to 7 square. So it is a Pythagorean triplet, 7, 24 and 25. तो बेटा मैथ्स क्विज में ऐसा किया नहीं?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
बहुत सारे लोग मैथ्स ओलंपियाड में जाते हैं आप लोग. So they check primarily the common sense. उसके बाद तो टफ मैथ्स आएगा. So Anyway, if we have 2 points in space having the coordinates of them xa, ya, za and xb, yb, zb, then whatever the length of this connecting straight line, xb minus xa whole square, yb minus ya whole square plus zb minus za whole square, and what about that vector ab? It is written in this bold face, xb minus xa x component unit vector I, then yb minus yaj plus zb minus zk, and simply either you can find the unit vector or you can find the direction cosines corresponding to x, y and z. Direction cosines means simply the cosine values of that line AB made individually with x-axis, y-axis and z-axis. So you don't need to measure those angles. You simply utilize this vector preliminary things. Okay. And we do that thing for this, find the coordinates of A, B and C, then connections AD, BD and CD represent in this vector, then their lengths, then represent the tension, this vector TA in this form, their magnitudes multiplied by this I component, J component, K component. Next thing, how many forces are there? TA, TB, TC and W. So equilibrium equation sigma F0 will give you TA plus TB plus TC plus W. This is vector summation. And these are individual X component summation, Y component summation and Z component summation. That is equal to 0. And if we consider the X component, Y component and Z component summation is equal to 0, simply this part is 0 gives us the first relation T is equal to TB. Second component Y component is equal to 0. There is no contribution from weight. So TA divided by root 6 plus again replace this value TB as TA. So TA divided by root 6, that is twice TA divided by root 6 minus TC over root 5, that is equal to 0. It means that right hand side TC divided by root 5. Now the third one, the Z component summation is equal to 0. This is 2 plus 2, 4 TA. We are replacing TB from this first equation. So 4 TA divided by root 6 plus twice TC divided by root 5, that is equal to 17.66. Now you please go through this thing and check whether I have made any mistake. Just take one screenshot and in your own system you just check this calculation. In the meantime, I just take your attendance. Fine. Now have you checked? From my side, is there any mistake?
No, sir.
Okay. Next, you solve them and check whether you are getting this result 5.41 kilonewton, that the tension developed in the member AD and BD, and in the third member CD, this is the tension developed 9.87 kilonewton.
Yes, sir, we are getting. I am getting.
Okay. Now,
I have done different method. Like I have like direction cosine. It is a little bit confusing for me. So I have done by normal resolving of components.
okay, no problem.
Sir, but I have to understand that I couldn't get the how to do it in direction cosines.
Yes,
Like,
sir, please explain again, sir.
Now, yesterday I was talking about a particular position that you are sitting in a room whose floor is rectangular, sides small a, small b, and height of that room is small c.
Yes, sir.
Then we are talking about some imaginary line connecting two opposite corners of your room. One corner is at the floor, other opposite corner is in the ceiling. Okay. Now that line is making individual three axis x, y, and z. If we consider the corner on the floor, it is the origin, and the three corner straight lines at that floor corner, it is the x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. Then the diagonal, solid diagonal, not the floor diagonal or wall diagonal or not the ceiling diagonal, that solid diagonal is the connecting the bottom corner of the floor, the one floor corner with the opposite ceiling corner. Now that line is making individual angle with three axes x, y, and z. If those angles are alpha, beta, and gamma, then can you measure these angles directly? Now, if we form three separate triangles, for which one common diagonal line will be that diagonal, that imaginary diagonal, for three perpendicular surfaces. So first of all, you need to find out the length of the solid diagonal, then the diagonal of the floor, then from that you find the angle made by that solid diagonal with
And the
the
floor diagonal.
horizontal floor diagonal. But that is not the angle made by that solid diagonal with that x-axis, which is one floor corner line. Okay. So for that, that triangle you have to form, which is made by the side A, the solid diagonal length, and other side is one vertical wall diagonal. So there you are forming one right angle triangle. And from that you get the real angles made by the solid diagonal connecting one bottom corner point to the opposite ceiling corner point. Those are the angles. These angles are not same when you are making or when you are talking or thinking about the angle made by the solid diagonal with the horizontal floor. That is different.
Mm.
But individual axis angle made by those by that solid diagonal line with individual axis x, y, and z,
Mm.
these angles are calculated in that simple geometrical way, and in its vector compact form, whatever you are doing, that same thing will automatically come because you are considering the x, y, and z components in its vector form, which includes automatically those x, y, and z components. Okay, so just take one small matchbox like thing and uh, take one small thread and pierce that matchbox with uh, yes, sharp needle or something like that, and pass that string, very fine thread, through those two corners. One is the bottom corner, other is the opposite top corner. Okay, so you'll find that. And these angles that you can find by simple calculation also, but ultimately you will find the whole thing represented in its compact form in the form of direction cosines. That means the direction of the straight line which is forming those angles alpha, beta, and gamma with x, y, and z axis separately, independently, you get their cosines values because cosine gives us the component. So if we have a straight line inclined to suppose, can you notice this movement of this cursor?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So
sir. But sir, the
But
there
figure
is
is
one
not showing on
horizontal
screen, sir.
straight line x-axis and
yes, sir.
another inclined line which is making some angle theta. So what
Yes, sir.
about the component of this line along this x-axis? Because
Cos theta.
cos theta. And what about this vertical component, y
Sin
component?
theta. Sin
Sin
theta.
theta. It is actually cosine of 90 minus theta, cosine
Yes,
of
sir.
this angle.
Cosine of 90 minus theta.
Okay,
That's 90.
that facility is available for two-dimensional case, cosine theta, sin theta.
Yes, sir.
But it is actually cosine theta and cosine 90 minus theta. But for three-dimensional case, there is no such thing.
Hmm.
Alpha plus beta will never be 90 degree
Yes, sir.
because the straight
तो
line is not that plane.
तीनों अलग अलग प्लेन में होंगे.
Exactly. So just have some refresh look there to your school days maths book, and
Yes.
I hope you don't need any help from anybody. Okay. होता है ड्यूरिंग स्कूल्स वी आर समटाइम्स सिलेक्टिव, पूरा सिलेबस हम पढ़ते नहीं, बट if five questions are there out of eight chapters and we are master of these five chapters, then I can score 100 out of 100 whatever questions are there. But we are missing those three chapters which will be useful for my life in corporate sector, in industry when we join. So if there is some problem taken from those three left out chapters or uh, not taken proper care, then you need some help. In industry, your boss will not help you. You will get help from your batchmates only, the alumni members, the senior. So naturally, uh, if you are the lowest merit holder of your batch, and if you compare your junior, the topmost merit holder, there is no question of any inferiority complex. In surname, आइंस्टाइन का पिताजी भी आइंस्टाइन थे, लेकिन he was not Albert. His son was Albert. So Albert gave us E is equal to mc square. What Albert's father, who was also Einstein, but he couldn't give. So make a good society in your batch. अभी तो आप लोगों का WhatsApp है, बहुत सारी है,
हाँ, yes, sir.
मेल है? तो you take
हाँ
help from
सर.
your friends.
करते हैं ना सर बातें बहुत सारी.
Okay, बातें तो बहुत हो गया. Then I will give you some reverse case. Determine the tensions in cables AB, AC, and AD, where at A, one ring is there and some flexible strings are connected inextensible to these 3 points B, C, and D. Now, this is a horizontal ceiling. At ceiling, three hooks are there fitted at B. Suppose these are fan hooks. So at B, C, and D, through these 3 points, take three different lengths of ropes and connect at a common location A. And through this point, you hang a force 100 lb. Now, lb का मतलब क्या होता है?
Pounds.
Okay, this is pound weight, not pound mass. Okay,
Yes, pound
we
mass.
consider this as pound weight. Then what about the direction cosines? Now you simply find out the direction of these straight lines with x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. If we consider this as x-axis passing through point in this direction, this as y-axis, and this as vertical z-axis for right-hand system, then it is very difficult to find from some common sense to directly find the angles. So efficient way is to utilize your old school ideas, that is vectors. So simply find the coordinates of A, B, C, and D. Find the individual this straight line vectors, xb minus xi, yb minus yaj, zb minus zak, etc. For the vector corresponding to this line connecting A to B. Similarly, for A to C, A to D, find the unit vector or directly from direction cosine से भी काम चलेगा. Then force equilibrium, the vector summation F AB or TAB plus TAC plus TAD plus W, that is equal to 0. You write them in ijk components. So directly you will find I component summation is equal to, as you have done in the previous problems or 2D cases. Then J component summation is equal to 0 for all these three individual equations, and for K component, it will include this self weight. And please solve it. And in our next class, please uh, give me
Yes,
the
sir.
answer. I'll check with this thing. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And this is taken from a book.
Yes,
So
sir.
this is your task to find out that book if possible. Otherwise, you know this common sense and common approach, the simple thing, the basic, the primary, and do it. Okay. Till then, bye for today. And tomorrow we'll meet again at 2 p.m. in the graphics class. Okay then.
Yes,
Bye,
sir.
sir.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
Bye, sir.
Bye, sir.
Good day, sir.
Bye, sir.
Thank you, sir. Bye, sir.
चले गए
चले गए
सर,
चले गए चले गए।
चले
गुड
गए।
नाइट करके भाई ने
2 बजे के बाद है
कल कर
ग्राफिक्स की।
ग्राफिक्स क्लास है ना इंजीनियरिंग।
कल 31 तारीख है।
अबे कल छुट्टी नहीं है।
बायो क्लास है कि ना आज?
अभी कोई क्लास है क्या? अभी कौन सा क्लास है?
अभी बायो है।